Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of To The Point podcast. Hope everybody's doing well. And we're back on a Tuesday after a couple weeks hiatus, deciding on a new show to cover. We're covering my favorite show. My podcast, I let Shamus pick the shows, but I'll be on. I swayed him in this direction. Breaking Bad is my favorite show. I've watched it 3 times. This will be my fourth rewatch with Shamus. But going through the first 2 episodes, I've already noticed different things and plot lines. So I'm excited to go through the entire series with Shay. It's good to get a show where we can go start to finish and really look at characters, look at how they age, different things like that. And obviously acting and plot lines, which we will dive into. But Shamus, I know you've watched the show before, buddy, but what did you make of the first 2 episodes on I believe it's your second rewatch?
So I would say it's my favorite. It is definitely top three for me. And I think the last time I watched it was grade 11 or grade 10. It was whenever Netflix blew up and became a big thing. It was one of the first shows they threw on there, and it's still been on there ever since. So yeah, I've watched it then, and I've always said I wanted to rewatch it. I'm not a big rewatch guy. Like, I wouldn't go, even my favorite show, The Sopranos, I wouldn't go back and rewatch it probably anytime soon, maybe in a few years. But this show I've been eager to get back at. I remember in the apartment, me and you, or you were watching it again, and even just kind of sitting in with you for a couple episodes, like, I just forgot about how great the show actually is. So no, and like you said, like, these first 2 episodes are great. They kick it off. Such great ways to introduce all characters to the show, who most of them last throughout the whole entire thing. So no, it's excited, and we're going to get underway here. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought the pilot, which is episode 1, sets the tone perfectly for how the show is going to keep, progress. We see, obviously, Walter White is our protagonist or antagonist as we get further into the show, played by Bryan Cranston. Bryan Cranston speaks for himself. Malcolm in the Middle. We talked about him already on Your Honor. I think this is his masterpiece, which obviously he's won several awards. But episode 1 starting in the RV with a kind of a flash forward, if you will, because the episode does move back in time and move forward, which does happen in season 1. It happens less as we get deeper into the show. But I like that it starts in the RV. Obviously, it's kind of, if it's your first time watching, it's a little, you're a little abrupt because you see, he's naked. The two of them have gas masks on. They're just flying through this desert. And Bryan Cranston takes the RV and basically sends it into a ditch. He exits the RV with his tighty whities, and he has a gun in hand, and he's pointing it forward. And we don't know the context yet, but clearly this guy is in a very dangerous situation or in a very desperate situation.
Yeah, I think it's a great way to introduce the show. Like, let's put a scenario out there without anything leading up to it and just absolutely confuse the fuck out of everybody watching it.
Right.
I'm watching, I was telling you before we hopped on, I'm watching this with my girlfriend and she's watching it for the first time. And I gave her the warning, like, the beginning of the show is going to be very confusing, and, you're probably not going to like it because, she likes everything so organized. Well, I said, just give it a second to digest, and you'll see as the episode progresses, like this, it'll end up ending here, which is what I love.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like a challenge as a viewer. You don't want it to be too confusing. I can think of a few Quentin Tarantino films that you go, okay, how the hell did we get here? Yeah. But even though I love QT, but you have to watch the whole show. I think of Game of Thrones early on, the first couple seasons. If you're reading a book or if you're talking to people in the middle, you're going to be confused and you're not going to get it. So I look at it the same way in the show. You need to look at the screen. You need to know when it's 12 hours earlier or 12 hours behind, because otherwise, like Kenny likes organization, you're going to be lost in translation when who is this character and why the hell does he have a gas mask on?
Yeah. One thing that drives me crazy, I don't think she'll listen to this, but she's bad for going on her phone and then listening to what's going on TV. I'm sure a lot of people probably watch TV like this, like where they just kind of follow along through listening. Well, she'll look up and she'll be well, what's going on? Like, this is so confusing. I'm like, well, you should have been paying attention. And this is just one of those shows where you have to do that, at least the beginning, like you said.
Yeah. So, yeah, we hear sirens. We think it's police sirens, but he's got the gas mask. His partner's in the driver's seat, passed out. So that happens, and it pivots to. I wrote this down because when I hear this music, it just. I think it has one of the greatest theme songs ever, and it's so simple. And it's not even words, but it's just the noise and the graphics with all the chemistry. I love the theme song for Breaking Bad.
I love how it's so quick. It's just like boom, then that's it. And but it's so effective. And all it is, I guess, for people who haven't watched the show, is just the two chemical symbols popping up on the screen coming from what's that? I'm blanking on the
periodic table.
The periodic table. So these two blanking, and then it makes up the word Breaking Bad. But you're right, that music gets you every time. And you might not watch this show for 20 years. You hear that music, you know exactly where it's from.
Absolutely. Totally agree. I think of like Different Strokes. I haven't seen that show in probably 10 years. If I hear that theme song, I know it's Mr. Drummond, and I know it's, the cast of characters in Different Strokes. So that happens, and then we pivot to 12 hours, or we pivot to current day, and we learn that this man is named Walter White, and he I guess before that, he records a video, telling his family that they'll learn why he was doing this. He had all the best intentions at heart, and that he was doing it for them. Because clearly, we can take from this that he's doing something very illegal, and he thinks he's about to be arrested and probably go to jail.
Mm-hmm. No, and anyone who hasn't watched this, or maybe, God forbid, hasn't heard anything about this show, is like, what is this guy getting into? Like, RV, there's seems like two guys knocked out in the back. You got a partner and a gas mask in the front. Yeah, it's all kinds of craziness, and I just love how he just goes about his normal day shortly after making this video.
Yeah, no, you're right. And so at this point, we hear the theme song, and we go flash to 3 weeks earlier. So a good period of time, and we pivot to Walter White, and it's his 50th birthday. And we get introduced to his wife, Skylar, who's played by Anna Gunn, who I know we'll talk about a ton through this series because she's in it, a lot of it. And she's a compelling character. I know she's hated by a lot of people. We'll dive into that. But right now we see Skylar is pregnant. And we also get introduced to the breakfast scene, Walter Jr., and his son has cerebral palsy, which, if you don't know, is you basically you don't have the full motion of your arms or legs. So he walks around on the crutches, and the actor actually does have cerebral palsy in real life. So that's another compelling part of the show.
Yeah, an amazing job by him throughout the whole show. I thought he was such a compelling character. And I just love at the beginning. He's just such a smart ass right away to his mother and father. It just kind of sets the tone. And I really just enjoyed his presence throughout the whole show. So it's kind of just refreshing knowing that he's still got that personality. He comes out right away. It's not like some minor characters who maybe develop that as they go along, Chuggy. It's he has that right from the beginning, and he starts it off like that.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's banner that you'd have at any dinner table. I've done that. So for context, they're eating bacon, but it's veggie bacon. And, I'm sure it tastes great. I've never had veggie bacon, but he basically tells his mother, I want some real bacon, not this veggie shit. And, Walter say, we got to eat veggie bacon because it's my cholesterol. And he goes, oh, I don't care. My cholesterol is good. Give me some real bacon. And it's this funny runner where Walter just ends it, basically says, eat your veggie bacon.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's happening. We also see that Walter, he's a scientist. He's a science teacher at a high school. We see a plaque on the wall that he's actually contributed to a Nobel Prize. So clearly he's a smart man, and he's a high school chemistry teacher. And he but you look at the house, you look at he drives a Chevy Aztec, which is just a pimping car for me now just because of the show. It's ugly as sin, but it's
Oh,
the Aztec. But he also works at a car wash.
hmm
Clearly, his wife's pregnant. She's doesn't work. They are not. They're definitely middle to lower class.
hmm Yes, no, for sure. And you just think about like the problems that teachers have, like with wages in the States.
Mhm.
That sometimes it's just not livable for them down there, and it's kind of crazy. But yeah, so yeah, it's clear that maybe he's having a hard time making ends meet slash maybe just getting above a little bit. And obviously throughout the later in this episode, we'll find out a bigger, more important impact to this.
Right. So yeah, he works at A1 Car Wash. He he does the counter, but he also has times where he has to go wipe the cars. And actually, one of his students, who's kind of a smart ass in class, spots him and takes a video, starts making fun of him. So Walter's definitely a timid character at the beginning. He's definitely I wouldn't call him a loser, but I think he's afraid more of a he's an afraid character where he's he's afraid to take a risk. He's kind of just comfortable being comfortable. He likes being
Yeah,
comfortable, and he's not really willing to take a risk. But as you said, that will take a drastic change here pretty soon.
yeah. I think this moves into the big surprise party that
Yes.
um, Skylar ends up throwing for him. He's supposed to be on time. He's not on time because he works too much.
Mhm.
And sure enough, he's got a bunch of people there, and that's when we get introduced to one of my favorite characters of the show, Hank. And
Yes.
I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, we get introduced to Hank and Marie Schrader. Marie is Skylar's sister, and she's played by Betsy Brandt. And we get, as you said, Hank Schrader, played by Dean Norris. I agree with you. One of my favorite characters. I kind of look at him like Paul Giamatti, where he can go from 0 to 100 so quickly as an actor. And I think that's a really important skill that a lot of actors can't, or when they try to do it, it comes off kind of shallow. With Hank, you see it. Um, and we learn that Hank is a DEA agent for the Drug Enforcement Agency, and he's kind of a big deal. We see at the party, he turns up the TV to show a drug bust where him and his team have taken over $700,000 in crystal meth. And Walter is intrigued. He goes, 700 grand is that a big haul? And Hank says, not really. It's kind of common. We've taken 1 million before, but these guys make some money until we catch them. Ha ha ha. But we can already see Walter. He's intrigued by. He sees the cash and he's starting to get intrigued by the idea.
Yeah, I love the move by Hank bringing his partner, who probably has no relation to Walter whatsoever, brings him to the party anyways, just
Yeah.
because he likes having him around. They poke fun at the beginning of the show. They poke fun of each other a lot, but they are actually really good friends, and
Yeah.
we'll see that as that progresses. But I think an important thing to show how kind of timid and kind of I'd say a safe guy Walter is. He's sitting there with his beer, and all of a sudden, Hank's kind of poking fun of him a little bit, kind of give him a couple jabs, and all of a sudden, kind of gives him this like backhanded toast almost, and
Yeah.
then this move is just legendary by Hank. He takes his Walter's own beer, cheers him, and then walks away with the beer, and I was just like, yeah, that's just Hank to a T, and that's just showing how kind of afraid Walter is a little bit.
Right. And it's interesting that they start Hank off this way because he goes through many different character pivots in this show. But when at this point, episode one, just if you watch it for the first time, do you take Hank as kind of a wisecracker or more of a bully?
Oh, bully for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, just kind of poking expense of others. I'd say for most of the first season, he seems that way.
Yeah.
Until you actually get to see him a little bit more throughout the show. But yeah, I mean, that's just kind of his character at this point in time. But he just becomes so much more throughout the entire show. And yeah, there's a reason you love Hank. But even now, like the wise cracks and letting people hold his gun at the party, like I don't know, just a funny guy. Would be a good guy to have a beer with, I think.
For sure. No, agreed. And Walter even asked Hank, could I go on a ride along sometime? And Hank said, yeah, sure, no problem. Like, just let me know. And so that goes on. And we go to about the next day or a couple days later, and Walter has been coughing consistently through the start of the show. Nothing too serious, but he does have a cough, and he's at the car wash detailing vehicles, and it's at this point where he just passes out. And he's in the back of an ambulance. He's saying, basically, get me out of here. Can you drop me off? I don't got good insurance. It's going to cost me a lot of money, which again tells you where they are financially. And the doctor's like, no, we got to check you out. And after getting to the hospital, seeing a specialist, we learned the biggest news of the show because it's throughout. It's a key plot line. Walter has terminal lung cancer, and he's given about 1 to 2 years to live.
Yeah, it's huge news, and when the doctor's telling it, it's kind of blanked out, and it's like almost like this kind of high pitched dimming noise, and then all of a sudden he comes to it, and the doctor's like, "Did you just hear what I said? Are you taking any of this in?" And Walter's like, "Yeah, you just told me I have terminal lung cancer, but you have a stain on your shirt." Yeah. And that's just kind of the guy Walter is. Like, he took that information in, but he didn't take it like most people would. Like most people breaking down, crying. Walter's kind of like, it's like, this is bothering me. I'm going to tell you right away.
Right.
Big old mustard stain.
Yeah, it's a good scene from him. Where, you just got a mustard stain on your shirt.
Got that on your shirt.
Yeah. And the doctor's just kind of taken aback. And key thing here, Walter does not tell his family that he has terminal lung cancer. Oh. That's it. He likes to keep information to himself. We'll see that throughout the show. But he does not tell Skylar, does not tell anybody. But after getting this information, he kind of acts on it. He quits the car wash, tells his boss to go fuck himself.
Naps.
He is an asshole to him. So quits that. And he's kind of in a depression one morning, but he calls Hank and says, "Hey, can I go on that ride along?" And it's at this point that Hank takes him to a rumored meth lab, and Walter's in the back seat and gets a firsthand view of the DEA taking down a meth lab.
Yes, the infamous Captain Cook. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's cool. It's cool to see the scene, really, because I mean, obviously, like, we've probably seen a breaking, like a cop raid about 1,000 times, but every time this one gets me going because we know who's slamming out of the neighbor's window afterwards. And going back to the cancer news, Juggy, I know we stepped over it. Like, what are the odds? You know what I mean? Like, anyone, it's just crazy to think that that could happen to anyone, right? Because you don't have to be a smoker. Nope. Some people smoke their entire lives and they're fine, their lungs get fine, but you don't even have to be a smoker and you can still get it. Just, I know, boggles my mind sometimes.
No, it's so true that cancer is, you could be healthy as a horse and it doesn't care. Like, cancer will attack anybody, and for no reason. You could be the healthiest person alive. And Walter was in relative good shape, good health. Like, he didn't smoke. Again, he was high cholesterol, but what man does not have high cholesterol? So yeah, it's obviously crushing news, but that's who Walter is. He doesn't like to dwell, or not that he doesn't like to dwell, but he moves on because he focuses on that. Then, clearly he's thinking about his family, and, he's got a pregnant wife who's unemployed. He's going to be sick. The bills are going to be crazy at the hospital. And basically his thought process is, I'm going to leave my wife with 2 kids, one with cerebral palsy, basically penniless when I die.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So he goes with Hank. Like you said, Hank says, it's the infamous Captain Cook. So they raid the house. There's one guy who's kind of breaking up some meth in the downstairs, and his name's Emilio. They do grab him. It's a dirty, dirty meth lab. Like just it gross. Like what you assume people are making like in their basements. That's what this place looked like.
Yeah.
They only think they got one guy. Walter's in the back seat, and he sees, like you said, the neighbor's house. This skinny white dude jump on the roof, fall off. This woman's throwing him clothes. She's got, she's got her bra off, and he's basically, he makes eye contact with Walter, and he goes, "Ah, shit." And Walter's like, "Pinkman?" And we learn that this is Jesse Pinkman, played by Aaron Paul, another one of our key characters, but he used to be Walter's student. He taught him chemistry, and Walter knew who he was right away. And Captain Cook, who had Jesse as the license plate, the captain, fled the scene without the DAA noticing him.
Yeah, it's a good time to be, screwing the neighbor's wife for sure. Yeah, you're right though. Skinny white guy, gruely looking. I don't even know. He's changed. His transformation from the beginning of the show to the end of the show is one like no other. Probably even more than Walter's, really. But yeah, it's funny to get that introduction, because when you make that, when you first watch this show and then you get introduced again to this character, I don't know, it just makes me chuckle every time, because he's just, everything about him is just humorous. And so Walter White ends up going to Jesse's home, and he kind of confronts him. He's like, "Oh, I didn't think you would amount to much, but I didn't think you'd be cooking crystal meth by the time you were in your 20s." And Jesse Pinkman's if you know Jesse Pinkman, he's using a lot of swear words. Whatever. I don't give a fuck what you think.
Yeah, and his key catchphrase, "Bitch."
Yeah. Oh, bitch is quoted by Jesse Pinkman, used far more than any other character in any other show. I put money on that.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, he's just a classic character. And yeah, so he kind of confronts him, and I'll let you take it away with this brainy idea of Walter White's.
Yeah. So Walter says, I saw you there, and I'm not gonna rat you out per se. I can, but let's do this. I got a different proposition. We're gonna cook together. I cook. I know the chemistry. You know the business. We're partners 50-50. Whatever we make, we split. And Jesse is not very keen on the idea. He goes, Mr. White, who he calls him Mr. White a lot throughout the show, which I like. I think it's interesting that he still calls him Mr. White.
But it's like sometimes when you see a teacher, like,
yeah, that's true.
You will call a teacher by their last name still, like to this day. Like,
yeah.
For example, Cosman, Mr. Cosman. I don't know Mr. Cosman's first name, so I'm gonna call him Mr. Cosman if I ever see him again.
Yeah,
it's just a fact.
True. Yeah, no, you're right. There's still teachers I call by their last name. So he's calling him Mr. White, and Jesse's like, fine. I don't want to get ratted out. You don't have a partner. You got no money. It just got seized, so you're up shit creek. So he's like, okay, fine.
Yeah. They're kind of at this point, you could say that they're both kind of backs are against the walls, because they're both kind of left with nothing. Like, and this is so Jesse Pinkman. He goes, Walter goes, "Oh, this is your aunt's house," and he goes, "No, this is my house." It's clearly his aunt's house, but he's just pretending it's his house.
Right.
And I thought that was just so funny. Like, looking back, I'm like, what a fucking idiot.
Yeah, he couldn't make it seem like he was like just living off her. This is my house, bitch. And he's like, fuck it. Basically, the screen changes. We just assume Jesse has agreed, and Walter steals some equipment from the science lab, but he also has rules for Jesse, and it has to be clean, not like that dump that they were doing at Emilio's. No more baby formula, and Jesse's key ingredient in the crystal meth has been chili pea, as he calls it, or chili powder, Walters is like, nope, we're making a premium product. We're not making this crap anymore. And they basically, Jesse agrees. Walter's like, okay, we'll cook here tomorrow. Jesse's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. No. I don't shit where I eat. So he basically tells him, okay, go find an RV and we'll cook there. And that's really where the origin story starts of the RV.
Yeah, I mean, it's the RV doesn't last forever within the show, but it's just so memorable that these two just have the best time of their lives just cooking crystal meth in this RV. And I love that, we'll get into it much later. But the origin story of how they obtained the RV, because that's a whole other plot line on its own that kind of comes into play much later on throughout the show. But
great episode.
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny. Like, all we see is basically Walter give Aaron Paul's character, it gives him the cash, but that's about it. We just assume that he goes and pays for the RV as he should, but that's not reality. But that's for another episode.
Yeah, no, exactly. And there's another, this is a key line, and it's an episode, like episode 1, but it's big. They're at the credit union. Walter gives them the money. And Jesse's like, whoa, hold up. Why are you doing this? And Walter's like, why are you doing this? He's like, well, the money mostly. And Walter says, there you go. He says, no, there's more to it than that. You got to stick up your ass your whole life, and now you just want to cook crystal meth. And he's like, stiffs like you don't break bad. And I think that's such an interesting that they put the name of the show in the first episode, because I think a lot of people would see the title and be like, Breaking Bad. Like, what does that mean? It puts it in perfect perspective what's happening with Walter and his character.
Yeah, basically. And that's because he has to do it. Like, he has got no other options. Like, it's like you said, his wife, he's going to leave two kids and his wife penniless if he doesn't do something big. And the risk factor of, his brother-in-law being a DEA agent, I'm sure there's other bad ways to make money. You could, I don't know, start pimping or doing something crazy, but no, like, I'm going to do this because I know how profitable it is. And, I had the ins and outs with my former high school student, Jesse Pinkman, aka Captain Cook.
Yeah, aka Captain Cook. So they go through a scene where we see Walter kind of stick up for his son when they're clothes shopping. That's kind of interesting. Walter's getting made fun of, or Walter Jr.'s getting made fun of for having crutches. Walter basically slams the guy to the ground, threatens him, and even the guy tells the guy to hit him. So we see Walter start to change a little bit. He's not so afraid. So that's an interesting scene. But they go and they cook, and they make. Jesse says it's the best product he's ever seen. He wants to. He sees Walter cook. He calls him an artist, which is kind of interesting. And it's what's different about this crystal is it's pure glass, and it's something that Jesse clearly he smoked a ton of crystal. He's never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
So he decides to take this new product to a heavy hitter, so to speak, in the business. A guy by the name of Crazy 8, and this gentleman is he's Hispanic. He's got a dog that looks he's about ready to kill you, because Jesse walks into his house. He's got basically a dummy hanging from the ceiling. The dog's ripping his legs off. So this is not a very inviting scene. And Crazy 8 is the cousin of Emilio, who was busted by the DEA, who was formerly Jesse's partner. And Emilio takes a hit. He thinks it's really good. And Jesse says, I'm selling. But the tide turns on Jesse very quickly, because we learn that Emilio had just been bailed out of jail that morning. And they think Jesse ratted on Emilio to the DEA. So they take him from there.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not a good sight. It's Jesse letting his mouth get the best of him another 2 times. I'm sure if he would have just been calm when Crazy 8 accused him of ratting on Emilio, it might have went a different way. But immediately it just kind of turns on him, and they're like, yeah, we're gonna hold you at gunpoint. We're gonna find out where you got this. So here's Walter in the middle of the desert cooking, and comes out of his RV, and this little, I don't know, it's like, is it a lime? Is it yellow? What kind of tire is?
Yeah. I'd say lime. Yeah.
Yeah, and you'd be kind of, I think you'd be kind of like not shocked, but you'd be kind of scared if anyone was approaching your RV and you were making meth in it. Let's be honest. And Walter just kind of stands his ground. He's like, "What the hell?" And this guy gets out, and he's kind of like, "Oh, you're the cook." And then he's like, Walter's like, "Well, what do you mean?" And Crazy Eight's like, "Oh, I got your stuff." And he's like, "I'll be willing to pay for it for the right price." Pulls out like a Ziploc baggie full of rolled up dollar bills, and yep, I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, so he's got a bag of cash, and obviously Walter is intrigued by it, and we see Jesse's in the front seat, Emilio's in the back, kind of with a gun to him. But Emilio comes out and notices Walter from being in the DA vehicle and says, he knows the DA, he's in the DA, he's a cop. So Jesse just yells, "Mr. White, run." So Walter starts running towards the RV, sputtering, Crazy Eight with a gun in his hand. Jesse runs about a foot, falls on a rock. So Emilio's got him. Emilio kicks him a few times. And at this point, Crazy Eight is going to kill Walter, just take the crystal that he has. But Walter says, no, you need me. You need me to teach you how to make it, and so you can do it. And Crazy Eight's like, yeah, no, you're right. That's how I'm gonna make more money. They tie up Jesse. Emilio kicks him in the face, and it was great work from the art department with Jesse's eye, because it is disgusting. Like,
yeah,
it's a
huge
sealed eye.
It's sealed shut. It is so puffed up. It looks like someone took a bat to the face, if that's any analogy. Like a Randy Johnson fastball to the fucking eye. Like, that's scary shit.
So Emilio's not a very smart person. We learned that very quickly here. Crazy Eight's a little bit more level-headed because he actually seems like more of a businessman. So they're sitting there watching Walter cook. He's about to start. Emilio's got a cigarette, and Walter's like, "Put the cigarette out." And Crazy Eight gives him the nod, like, "Do it." Before he does, he blows a big bunch of smoke right in Walter's face, and then throws the cigarette out the window in the middle of the desert with, cactuses and different plants. But we're talking about, this show, I should have mentioned this off the top. This show is based in Albuquerque, New Mexico. It's hot in Albuquerque, New Mexico. That's close to Nevada. That's the Arizona climate, where it's the desert. It's very warm. So while they start to cook, but Walter's being very slow, and you can tell he's a little calculated here. And Crazy Eight, like, let's go. Like, we don't got all day. So Walter grabs the red phosphorus, and I don't know everything about science, but clearly he throws it into the pan, and we hear this big, he runs towards the door, and we hear this big explosion where he slams the door. He's putting all his body weight up against it so that Crazy Eight and Emilio can't get out. They're shooting bullets through the RV door because the chemical reaction is basically just, it basically wipes you out. It takes away your vision, your breathing. It's supposed to kill you. And they shoot a bunch of times, they fight, but at the end of it, Walter has taken them out. Basically, they are no longer a threat. So they're in the back of the RV. He runs to Jesse, is going to untie him, but as he does this, he sees the forest fire.
Yeah, and this thing's it's probably not bad like that it's going to cause a major issue, but it's bad enough that he can't put it out himself. So he really, and it's beside the RV. So God forbid if it started to catch the RV on fire, gas, everything else that's in there, it's basically a walking bomb. Like, all these chemicals would just go off, no problem. So Walter kind of goes into a panic. And going back to the fact that Walter did that with Crazy Eight and Emilio, it's just one of many times Walter kind of outsmarts his opponent, we will say, by using his chemistry knowledge. And like, it's actually kind of cool when you think about it. Like, how would you get yourself out of a dangerous spot but like if you only had chemicals to surround you, and like
Right.
he's the kind of the mastermind behind this. So he kind of gets up Jesse, and he kind of puts him in his car. Because this red sulfurous, is that what it's called?
Yeah, phosphorus.
Phosphorus, sorry. It's it's still there. It's still lingering within the RV. He has to put on the gas mask, and he has to put Jesse in the gas mask. Throws him in the passenger seat and takes off, because he probably realizes he only had like maybe a few minutes before the RV caught on fire. And this brings us to the beginning of the show, where Walter, he's driving frantically, driving around, and he's got sweat in his eyes. He's probably fucked up from this phosphorus. And what does he do? He goes into the ditch, gets his gun, and makes his video. And that's basically where the beginning of the show leads us. And it's kind of a humorous end of the show.
Right. Yeah. And see, it leads us to that, and we're thinking, okay, it's going to end because like the beginning, but it actually pivots to Walter getting home, and he's in bed with Skylar, and it goes to the next episode. It leads in to he's having sex with Skylar, and he's kind of, he showed earlier that he was a little bit timid to have sex with her, and he does not maybe the manliest man, so to speak. But he had, a lot of excitement, clearly, from what had transpired earlier in the day.
Yeah.
They start having sex, and clearly it's passionate, because at the end of it, he's coughing up a lung, and she's like, what the hell is happening with you? And he ends up spending the night on the bathroom floor.
Yeah, I just thought about how cold that was. He's worked up the sweat from putting the work in the bedroom. Goes, basically has a drink, washes his face, looks himself in the mirror, and then passes out on the floor, the cold, icy floor. Yeah, butt ass naked.
Yeah.
Anyways, it's a sight to be seen.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because we see a lot of Walter naked earlier in the show, and it kind of leaves later, which is interesting. But he's buck naked on the floor. And so there's this scene where they kind of have breakfast. She's a little timid, and we'll get into the phone call later, but we get another 12 hours earlier from when that happened. And Walter's there. He puts the gun to his throat and pulls the trigger to kill himself, because he believes the cops are coming to arrest him and Jesse. There's no bullet. Then he looks in the chamber, and he fires one, hits the ground, which he's like, oh, he starts swearing, because he's like, that was the last bullet in there. And so he's ready to go to jail. He's there in his underwear, and he hears the sirens. He's looking into the distance. They're fire trucks. It's not a police siren. And it's actually pretty funny, because he was ready to kill himself, and the fire trucks just whiz by him because they know the forest fire. They don't even look at him twice. He's just basically in their way. And he clearly realizes, okay, I'm going to get away with this one.
Yeah. And I think it's just so humorous by the writers to put that in there, like such a dramatic, you go from such a high from him trying to kill himself, like or a low, I guess some people would see it.
Yeah.
To a more lighter note, and it's not what we thought. He's not going to get busted. He's going to slim by this way. And yeah, it's just humorous, and I liked it a lot. Like, even rewatching it, I was like, I kind of forgot about it, and I was like, yeah, this is it. This is why I like this show.
Yeah, no, it's so subtle humor, because like you said, it's a serious situation. Walter's just like, oh shit, I got away with this, and he just kind of puts the gun behind his back, and they just whiz by him. Jesse comes out of the RV, like you said, the eye is just like gross. He can't even somewhat look out the eye. He's just like, what the hell happened? He's got the gas mask in hand, and he just sees the RV just flat in the ditch, because Walter was just flying when he hit the ditch. So they're in the ditch, but a First Nations man was there with his tractor going by. So he pulls them out, and this is another humor scene where they have to give him cash, but it's like covered in
chemicals and
liquids and shit. And they keep giving him handfuls of money, and he looks back at them like, more. Like, this guy does not say a word, but he just, more, please. Like, this is clearly you guys are doing something wrong here.
Yeah.
And, more. And then finally he lets them be, but it's a funny scene between the three of them.
Yeah, no, it's a great way to start off the second episode because it goes from really dark to really light, and then yeah, exactly. It's got a couple humorous parts in it, and then I forget where it pivots from there. I think I'll let you pick that one up.
Yeah, it goes where they're trying to get the RV started. Jesse, they're bickering. Jesse's like, "You're gonna flood the bitch," and I'm not gonna flood it. It's gonna start. And after about 3-4 turns of it, it starts. They give a big high five. Walter's like, "We're done. We get this back home. We deal with this. We're done." And Jesse's like, "Yeah, we're friggin' done, bitch." And as they're about to take off, they hear a noise in the back of the RV. One of the two is alive.
Yeah, and this is okay. Good, go ahead.
No, it clearly they think both of them is dead because Walter's like red phosphorus, and with that amount of chemical, they're dead for sure. But one of them is moving in the back, not fast. Clearly, this phosphorus did some damage because we see later on. But one of them is moving, and they know, okay, this is a bigger maybe problem than we originally thought.
Yeah, and I think it pivots to the breakfast again, right? And then this is where they kind of have that awkward look, and that's when we get the phone call from AT&T, aka my boy AP, Aaron Paul.
Yeah. So, yeah, Jesse took the RV home, and Walter's like, I'll be there tomorrow. Just take care of it." And so they're having breakfast, and they get a call. It's a telemarketer. It says, "AT&T, hope you're enjoying your service. I'd really like to talk to you about this big problem that I've had down at the mill. It's moving around a lot." And Walter picks up the phone, and he's pretending he's talking to a telemarketer. And Aaron Paul's like, "He's moving around in there, and he's gonna get out. Like, get over here." And he said you'd help me, whatever. And Walter's got to be like, "No, I'm not interested in this." And he goes, "Yeah, you're gonna be interested in this when he gets out." And Skylar's behind him and clearly knows he's up to something.
Yeah, it's your typical. I mean, the call itself was sketchy. So the fact that he's being weird on the phone as well is just raising red flags for him. And I love that. This is just something about her character that you hate, but at the same time, I kind of like it. She just digs deeper into that. She gets the number, and I don't. It's kind of a smaller scene, but she traces it back to this website that he has, and the website is hilarious.
Yes.
He's basically got his own website with his likes. It's got MILFs in there and dirty broads and God knows what else. There's pictures of him and hoes, and it's just funny.
And his answering machine, he
yes,
he goes. It's basically he calls it and he goes, "Represent the AQ. Leave it at the tone, biatch." And just, like, what the hell is going on here? But like she tracks him. She knows he's Jesse Pinkman, that he's a drug dealer. So she has her suspicions of Walt. He goes to school that day, teaches, but he continues to steal items from the chemistry lab. He steals 2 jugs of hydrofluoric acid, which is, you get that shit on you, you're done. It's over for you. Your body will be dissolving. So he takes that and goes to he's on his way to Jesse's, but Jesse's trying to put cream on his eye in his bathroom because it's just
makeup. He's trying to get makeup on there because he hates the look of it.
So while he's doing that, we hear a noise and the RV door is open, and we see Jesse runs out with a baseball bat. Basically, it's funny because he's got it by his knees. Like, if he had to use it, it would be
useless.
Not useless. And we see the chains have been broken, and Crazy 8, we learn he's the one who lived, is free. And another great scene. Walter's driving to Jesse's, just kind of putting along, and in the middle of the street is Crazy 8, because with this with this red phosphorus, basically you're blind in a sense, because Crazy 8, Walter comes up to him and says, hey, I can help you. But he knows it's Walter, but he clearly can't see, because Crazy 8 takes off running full sprint right into a tree and knocks himself out. and Walter has to grab the body, puts it in the back of the Aztec, and drive it back to Jesse's.
Yeah, just another between this and the fire trucks, it's kind of just another lucky streak that Walter kind of pulls himself into. But it's funny, yeah, he gets back there, he's scolding Jesse for basically not taking better care of it, and then Jesse's, well, if you were here, you could help me, but it's the dilemma they run into, because I guess Walter owns a full-time job, and Jesse doesn't. He just kind of gets high all day, but that's it.
Yeah, and so they throw him in the basement, and after a while, they attach him to a pole, and they use this it's a triangular lock.
It's a bike lock. Yeah, it's like a
yeah.
Yeah.
And if you've never seen a bike lock, you don't have a lot of room. Crazy 8 can basically move an inch, maybe. Like, he can only move so far, because if he does, his neck basically becomes strained. So he's stuck down there. He's breathing heavy. He is starting to get better. His vision is starting to come back. The breathing isn't great, but he is starting to learn, where he's at. Mm-hmm. And it's at this point where Walter and Jesse start debating on who's going to take care of who, so to speak.
Yeah, and I mean, neither one of them want to deal with Crazy 8 in the basement, because I mean, you get that deal, you're killing somebody. Not that obviously Walter has already kind of done so, but so they're kind of like, oh, like, how are we going to deal with this? Like, I think you should do it. You should do it. So what do they end up doing? They flip a coin, which, flip a coin over who's going to kill who. That's just kind of tells you what kind of show this is all about. But they flip the coin and Jesse wins. So Jesse has to take care of the body, and, ultimately leaving Mr. White to take care of Crazy 8.
Right. And, Aaron, Jesse's like, okay, well, I got to go take care of that body soon, because it stinks. We mentioned it's in Albuquerque, New Mexico. It's hot, and that body's in heat. That it's going to stink. So he goes out and tries to buy these tubs, because if you put a body, or you put anything in plastic, acid will not break through it. It grinds through metal, which we will get to. But you put something in a tub of plastic, we hear about that in the days of Cuba with the days of Narcos and all that. I think they were doing that back in the day, because it was a quicker way to dispose of people, because you didn't leave anything behind. So Jesse goes shopping for these bins. It's pretty funny, because he calls Mr. White and he goes, which one should I get? And he goes, Walter makes fun of him for being stupid and saying, did you not listen to anything in my chemistry class? He goes, no, you flunked me, bitch. And he's that funny runner. And then Jesse grabs one of the bins, and it's funny, he goes behind a corner and he jumps in it just to see if the body would fit. And I love that scene. I thought it was so funny.
Oh, it just shows kind of his personality, this thought process behind most things. It's just Jesse, I guess. But yeah, no. So he does that. He ends up not buying the tub at all, because he says, "Oh, it won't fit." And then he gets back to the house, and Walter's like, "Well, why wouldn't you just saw him in half or something?" And
or buy two, the legs and the torso in the other.
Anyways, Jesse's not a. If you haven't caught it by now, Jesse's not much of a thinker. We'll put it that way.
No. He goes, really, bitch? You're going to say that to me now? Like, again, bitch, maybe the most quotable in any show. I've heard him interviewed multiple times, and he says he gets bitch on a daily basis.
Yeah, people say bitch too.
He'll just yell bitch. Like that's his line. He says it probably 100,000 times during the course of the show, but that's his line. So Walter's trying to get the courage to kill Crazy 8. Doesn't really have it. Makes Crazy Eight a ham sandwich, gives him a couple jugs of water, poop bin, some TP,
Hand sanitizer.
and
Oddly enough.
sanitizer because COVID,
Yeah.
And he ultimately tells Crazy Eight that Emilio died in the explosion.
Yes. Yeah. Pretty sad. I mean, obviously, like, not that I don't think Crazy Eight had much hopes in the first place, but I mean, it's still his cousin to be frank. So I'm sure that hurt a little bit. But yeah, Walter has to leave. He does this, and then he kind of like, he's like, I got to go to this appointment. So he goes to the appointment where, his wife's getting an ultrasound of the baby. They find out that it's going to be a baby girl. No, he's really happy. But as the doctor leaves, Skylar confronts him.
Yes. So this is Skylar. This is the first sign, and I think Skylar gets a bad rap. I'm thinking about it more often, and we'll talk about it obviously as the episodes go on. But Skylar's a strong woman, and I think sometimes it can be perceived as a bitch. Not to quote Jesse here, but it can be often in shows they're perceived as a bitch, or not, their husband is doing the right thing and they're just nagging. But she really cares about Walter, and obviously she notices his behavior. It's different. So she asks him, what's going on? Who is this Jesse Pinkman? And he's trying to think of a lie, because he's like, well, he was my student. She goes, well, why was he calling the house this morning? He says, well, he sells me pot. It is a pretty good lie because it's plausible.
Oh, yeah.
And he goes, you smoke pot? And he goes, well, every now and then I like to smoke it. She goes, your brother-in-law works for the DA, right? He goes, just a little pot, Skylar. Like, I'd appreciate it for once if you just jumped out of my ass. Like, for once, could you please just get the stick from out of there? Because I'd really appreciate it. And that was an interesting scene between the two of them.
Yeah, because he's trying to snap. I'm sure he's probably at wit's end, but at the same time, he hasn't told her that he has cancer yet. So I mean, like, I don't know. It's frustrating to sympathize with him when, obviously you got to tell the ones you love around you if you have something of that urgency and of that matter. Like, you got to tell them that you have it, or it just kind of, I don't know. It just feels like at this point he was kind of bottling it up, and he kind of lives with it for a little bit longer, even past this episode.
Yes, and so he gives that condescending answer. She's kind of like taken aback. So he's back at work. It's during the day, and Jesse's trying to get the nerve to take care of Emilio. So he goes out first with no mask or anything, and he gets to the RV, and it's just the smell just overtakes him. It's that powerful. So he goes and gets the mask, and he starts bitching about Mr. White and how he's doing nothing. And he's supposed to be killing Crazy Eight, but he's still down there. And he goes, cops are going to show up, arrest me. And this guy's teaching chemistry, which is funny. And as he's dragging Emilio's body towards the house, who shows up? Skylar.
Yeah, so Skylar, like we said before, knew who he was because of his website, his infamous website. Tracks him down and basically confronts him, and she, it's like, my husband has told me everything that you guys have done. You're in big trouble. My brother-in-law works for the DEA, and you can see Jesse's face. He's like, oh my God, like, I'm gonna go to jail forever. Like, these bodies are, and then she goes, yeah, so you better stop selling him marijuana.
Yeah.
He just kind of goes, okay.
I can dig it.
Yeah, I can dig it.
And she's like, you can dig it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, yeah. So she just kind of ends up, and she's like, and she kind of turns around before she leaves, like, you better think of a better, line of work than this. And he's like, yeah, I'll look into that.
Yeah.
But it's ironic because, like, obviously she's telling him this, but doesn't know that her husband's also making the meth. So
right.
Yeah, gets funnier down the line.
Yeah, great scene between the two of them. They don't have many together. And this was a rare one, and obviously it's in episode 1, but I loved it because behind Skylar was Emilio's legs that she was just lucky enough not to see. They were sticking out behind the old Captain Cook car, and he got lucky that she was facing the opposite way. So She leaves. He starts dragging Emilio's body up the stairs and drops it a few times, but eventually gets the guy up the stairs, puts him in his bathtub, and he puts him in there with the guns and every other bit of evidence that was in the RV, and he starts pouring the hydrofluoric acid into the tub.
Yeah.
And I knew this before just from basic science. I mean, if you got a little bit of a brain, it can break through practically anything in the world. I mean, it's such a strong element.
Mm-hmm.
So he pours it. He's pretty proud of himself. Like, I did it. Whatever. So Walter gets there and goes, "What's that smell?" He goes, "Oh, I took care of the problem while yours is still rotting downstairs. And also I had to deal with your crazy psycho bitch wife who came over telling me not to sell you weed anymore." And it's at this point that Walter says, "Well, where'd you do it?"
Oh, and Jesse's like, "Well, I did it in the tub."
Yeah.
Walter kind of like, oh, just walks over. And it's almost, I told Kennedy, it's like a horror movie. You got this big red drip coming from the ceiling of the hallway, and all of a sudden comes down, and it's just like his insides, his blood. It's not a pretty look. If anyone had maybe a weaker stomach, you probably would want to look away just for that one scene, because it's pretty gross. And and then the lecture comes from old Mr. White.
Yeah, he basically says, "So this is why I wanted you to buy the bins, Jesse." And like you said, his matter is all over. Like, you see it hit the floor, and you see blood. And
it's on the walls. Gross.
Everywhere. It's gross. And so that's everywhere. And clearly this is going to be a plot line into the next episode. But actually, the episode ends with back in the desert, and there's these group of kids running, and a young girl picks up the gas mask that Walter had left behind.
Yeah. And I think I totally forgot about that. This was going to be non-factor. There's a shot where it kind of it zooms out and the masks are there, but you're like, okay, it's not going to be relevant. It's in the middle of the desert, whatever. And then I forgot all about this scene, and I'm like, oh yeah, like there's a whole nother plot line to that one part. So yeah, you see it go on, and like just stuff like that happens, and it creates new, well, as we'll see in episode 3 coming up, it creates new plot lines and new, characters as well that kind of get introduced throughout the show.
Right. And that's kind of the end of episode 2. But as we move forward, we know it's episode 3 that Crazy 8's still alive in the basement. The floor is still full of remains and blood. There's a hole in the ceiling where the tub used to be, and there's still a lot to be uncovered here as we head into next week, covering episodes 3 and 4.
Yes, there's still a ton. It gets sometimes perceived as a slow show, Juggy, but you watch these first 2 episodes and like rewatching, and I just remember how much actually happens within a short span. I believe that this season maybe is the shortest season of all of them.
I think it's 6 episodes
out of all 5. So they actually really condense it. But I don't know, I just love it. Like there's so much that happens. Even the pilot episode, like so much gets introduced in such right ways. It's really, really well done. And it's one show. I know why it's your favorite show, because it doesn't take its foot off the throttle the entire time.
Yeah, I never understood like a slow show. Like when they're cooking, or but again, even when they're cooking, as we get later into the show, it's interesting because Jesse and Walter are communicating, and you learn more about them, like you said. And as we get into next week, we're going to learn more about Hank. We're going to learn more about Skylar, and learn more about what Walter's ultimately capable of.
Exactly. It's going to be good, and I'm excited to get this going. I thought this was a great idea. It says a lot that we've only done 4 shows, and we're covering 2 with Bryan Cranston as the main character. So that just speaks to him and how much we like him. Fans of Malcolm in the Middle, I mean, God, it's a classic dad character, and
Mhm.
even here, it seems like every role he plays, he's just a dad who loves his kids and is willing to do anything for them. So
Right.
just love to see it. And yeah, so what are your thoughts on the first two?
Yeah, I think both episodes were really well done, like you said, and it interesting dynamic because the two of them are so different, and they both they both want to make money. Jesse said he does it to make money mostly, but I think their reasoning for doing it is obviously different at this point. Walter has got cancer. He's in a low income family. He wants to make money because he kind of has to. Jesse, he doesn't have any career prospects. He doesn't. There's nothing he can do really other than grow crystal. So yeah, I think we learned that he's smarter than maybe he gives off. But to him, he's a high school dropout. He's he doesn't have a lot of great prospects. So it's either cook meth or go to jail, basically, for him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he doesn't have a whole lot of options at that point in life. I just still think about what Walter says, like, I didn't think you amount to much, but like cooking crystal meth for a living just seems like way lower than what you were. So kind of just shows the relationship before the show and where they were at. Clearly Jesse was the class clown / probably stoner, and Walter White was the, as Jesse likes to say it, guy with the stick up his ass.
Right. Yeah. No. Exactly. So it's a role reversal for sure as we dive deeper into the show. But before next week, Tuesday here, what do you got what you got in the docket the rest of the week for yourself?
Not much. I just gonna keep busy with work. Try and not think about this new Indian variant in Fredericton. That's among us now. Hopefully, everyone out there who's listening stays safe. Be cautious, and as much as it sucks, like I don't know about you, I try to check every other day on where we're at with cases and where we're at with the Atlantic bubble. As we approach summertime, it's obviously nice. The weather's getting a lot warmer. We just got our deck furniture out. I'm ready to pop a couple bottles out there and have a good time, but clearly can't do that with all this COVID variant out there. I had to give a shout out to one person, our good friend of the show, Casey Ward, got his marks back today. He's a university graduate. Congratulations, Casey. Straight A's. No, not straight A's, but he did pretty good. He showed me the marks and he did pretty good. I'll give him that.
Would you say the more straight A's or drizzling twos?
Yeah, some drizzling B's in there, maybe, but hey,
he's buzzing like a beaver,
C's get degrees. They know this.
Yeah,
everyone knows the words, and yeah, he's got a lot coming. He's a bright guy, and he's gonna have a lot coming his way. So congratulations, Casey.
No, congrats to Casey. Happy to hear that. And now he can focus more on getting that golf game going. And I heard you had a 108 to start your season.
109. I shot on my
Okay.
home course. Yeah. If anyone ever golfing at Grand Bay, let me know because I need some lessons ASAP. But the goal, Juggy, for the end of the year, break 100, break 90. That's it. That's it. Right. That's gonna be me on the golf course all summer long, just putting in that work. Couple cold Bud Lights probably gonna help with that, but no, that's it. And one day we'll have to shoot some content. Maybe me, you, and Casey go out to Miramichi or Iggy, either way.
Yeah.
And, you can be my caddy. Maybe point me out some things with your knowledge of golf and how much you watch. You'd probably be able to help. Like honestly,
yeah,
with what I can shoot and what I should be shooting. So we'll see.
I'd love to do that. Yeah, we'll definitely have to document that. I'm all for it. I'll put on the Happy Gilmore character wig there, and I'll
yes
get one shoe on and read those greens super well for you. But no, I'm all for that idea. And for everybody that's listening, you can hear me and Matt Wright actually tonight. We're doing it at 9:30 tonight. So great dedication from Writer to get some energy at 9:30 at night. We're going to talk the NFL draft. It starts Thursday. Shamus, as you know about me, this is like me geeking out to the hardest core. I've been listening to too many podcasts about the NFL draft. I'll just say that. But I love it, and I can't wait for it to start Thursday night when Jacksonville gets on the clock.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear your top 5 or top 30. I don't know. Are you guys going pick for
We're
pick
gonna
or?
do our top 10 mock tonight, and I also have a few picks after that. I have predictions for certain teams that I think will maybe make a trade and move up, and some players to look out for later on in the draft as well.
All right. All I gotta know right now, a little sneak peek. Where's my boy Smith going? Wide receiver. Is he going top 10 or is he gonna fade?
If it's
Right.
up to me, he's going in the top 10 because
Okay.
I as you know, I love him. But I think he's going to drop outside the top 10, and
Okay.
I think he'll be a steal wherever he goes. He's getting shamed right now for being 166 pounds, and he can run routes better than anybody in the draft. But I don't. Whoever gets him will get a steal, and maybe he ends up in Philadelphia with his old teammate Jalen Hurts.
Ooh, I like it. I like it. A little reconnection, rekindle that fire.
Alabama reconnect with the old connection there, and maybe ends up with the Eagles.
Okay. I see it.
So yeah, that coming this week. Trying to work out some more interviews. I had a great one with Doug McLean last week, so going to try to maybe get some more down the line here. But a lot happening here to the point. Shay, as always, we'll be back next Tuesday covering episodes 3 and 4. But until then, everybody stay safe, stay healthy, enjoy the good weather when it comes, and we'll talk soon.